Hey guys, welcome back to Ravenclaw Reads. I'm Courtney. If this is your first time seeing me, hey, check out my content. If you like it, hit the subscribe button. If you're already subscribed, thanks so much for subscribing. And I'm happy to have you here and continuing your support of my channel. So today I'm going to do a video about my top 5-star reads that I've read so far this year. I wanted to put this out since it's a little bit past mid-year, but still a time where people are kind of reflecting on what they've read this year. And I think I've read a good amount this year. I'm like at 123 books so far this year. And I have quite a few of 5-star reads. So I wanted to share my recommendations. So I want to just preface this by saying people have lots of ways that they review books and their opinions. And that's the beauty about having our opinions on books and creating a community where everybody's opinion is valued, even if you don't agree with it. And so I am not one of those people that holds out on a 5-star. If I really like it and I read through it, it was speedy, I had feel-good feelings about it, then I'm going to give it a 5 stars. So I think I have about, I don't know for sure, over 10 for sure 5-star reads this year. And so let's get started sharing. Okay, so the first 5-star book that I read this year was One Italian Summer by Rebecca Serle. Don't mind me if I'm looking off to the side because I'm reading my notes as I go along. But basically this story follows Katie. Her mother has just died, and Katie and her mom were planning to go to Italy to spend the summer. However, obviously her mom passed away. So Katie takes the trip anyway by herself. She's kind of having marriage issues, but it doesn't go really deep into that until sort of the end. And she goes and starts to sort of revisit her mom when her mom was 30 years younger, visiting Italy. And it's the summer before her mom had met Katie's dad. And so we're kind of on this time travel parallel timeline things. And so Rebecca Serle does a really great job with this. I think those books can be confusing if not written really well, but all of her books are like that. And so I appreciated the way this one was written, but it definitely gave summer vibes. It gave quaint, and I don't really get sad in books, but you could see where there's an emotional pull in the book as she's sort of seeing who her mom was before she was even born and figuring out like how she came to be. And so that book left me with great vibes. Totally recommend. Okay, the next book that I rated 5 stars was By a Thread by Lucy Score. This was actually my first Lucy Score book that I read, and I was really against her books, and particularly romance books that were hitting over the 500-page mark. I didn't understand it. I didn't know why this was happening, but since reading Lucy Score's book, I get it. I am still not a fan of that whole, like, we don't need to have 500 pages of romance, but I still liked By a Thread and gave it 5 stars. So this story is a traditional Grumpy Sunshine, and Dominic gets a girl fired. Her name is Allie. And she's working at a pizza place. He gets her fired, and Dominic's mom, offers her a job where Dominic works, and we start getting that sort of grumpy sunshine, grumpy boss, and they start falling for each other. I thought it was really, really well written, and I think that the way that Lucy Score writes books makes getting through 500 pages of romance not hard. However, since then, and even in this one, I gave this 5 stars. The other ones I've rated pretty high as well. However, I always say that her books could be 150 pages shorter and they would still get the gist. There's always some little like B plot that's happening that comes up later in the book that doesn't need to be there. And so that's just my critique on it. But this one got 5 stars because it did keep me going. And this was the first 500-page romance book that I read, and I said, hey, I can do this. All right, the next 5-star book I read was Set on You by You-Amy Lea. I borrowed this from my library after seeing that Exes and Os was coming out, which is another You-Amy Lea book. And so I liked this book because it focused on Grumpy Sunshine again, but we have a fitness influencer, Crystal, who is having like a gym beef with Scott, who is a firefighter. And they start kind of like this banter at the gym of fighting over equipment and all of that. Through time, they get to know each other. And then Crystal finds out that Scott's not as hard as she thought he was. And so they have to, I think this is a fake dating trope, I want to say. In this story, they are also connected by their grandparents who are dating and getting married, and so they're connected through family sort of, and have to come together and spend more time together, and because of this they start hitting it off. And it was just really cute, really well written and fast paced. Along with that, the next book that I gave 5 stars to was Exes and Os by Amy Lea, and this is in the same world, but it follows Crystal's sister and another firefighter, Trevor. And this one's really cute because what is her name? Sorry. Okay, Tara has to move in with Trevor, and so they have like forced proximity, and they're not really enemies to lover, they just don't know each other. It's a roommate situation, and Trevor's actually very into like dating and bringing girls home, and so for Tara to start dating him, it was interesting to see how that played out. But she's also an influencer. I think she's a booktuber, and so that was really good. So 5 stars for that. Then I started jumping into different genres, and one thing I love about Book of the Month, which I am a member, is that when there's no romance that I like, I always go to the thriller, and that continues to have me expand the style of reading that I have. So I read The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz, and this was so good. I read it in a day, and it follows 5 writers who win this writing retreat, and they are supposed to be writing every day with this famous author, and the best part about it is that the author will critique their work each day, have one-on-ones with them to make a wonderful manuscript. And so they're supposed to have the manuscript done, I want to say like in a month or 21 days, something really short. And what happens is people start dying, and it's like, who's doing it? Why is it happening? And it becomes this like thrilling adventure event. So it was weird, terrifying, and excellent. So 5 stars for that. Next, I read a Babysitter's Club book, which if you are new to my channel, I do read Babysitter's Club books as in-between palette cleanser books or just nostalgia. I'm currently rereading the whole series from the beginning. I just finished book 5. And then I am a huge fan, I've mentioned it so many times, of Stuck in Stony Brook, which is a podcast that talks about the Babysitter's Club. So I read Stacey's Broken Heart, and I gave this 5 stars because this book is all about Stacey going to New York for a week to babysit, and her boyfriend's acting weird, and she starts becoming suspicious because she thinks he's cheating on her, and like he is, spoiler, he is cheating on her. And so she kind of is like, I don't know, it's kind of like a mystery in the sense like, what is happening? Why is Robert not paying her attention? And it was just really well written, the way the conclusion was, and how they resolved this. Definitely not how a 12 or 13-year-old would resolve it, but it was very interesting either way. Okay, the next 5 stars I gave was to a Sweet Valley High book, which is another throwback book that I love to read as I am clearing my palette of different reading types. And this one, I haven't read Sweet Valley in a while because I kind of went through to just about the 100s. I haven't read any, but this is Don't Go Home with John, and this was so good. This book followed Lila and John. Lila is like the snooty friend mainly of Jessica, and she falls for John, this athlete, and he literally like tries to like assault her, and tries to go too far on a date. And we start going into this like feeling from Lila of like, should she say something? Does she report this? Is she the only one? And it's very like after school special. I'm in that age range where we watched those and like we learned life lessons through those, and this was like a life lesson. So I gave it 5 stars. It was so outrageous, and they did a really great job with empowering Lila as the main character in the story to like speak her truth. And yeah, really good. So 5 stars for that. The next thing I read was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This has been everywhere, and I really don't follow books that have been everywhere. I generally try to just read what I like, and if it happens to be something that I do. But I decided to read this on our trip to Chicago in March. I did it via Audible, which is perfect for the drive there. I just put an earbud in and let it run. And I gave it 5 stars because it was really good, really entertaining. We're following sort of like a rockumentary on the group Daisy Jones and the Six and everything they've been through, kind of like a retrospect. I think the best way to read this is via audio. I heard that prior to reading it, which is why I did it this way. I think that because it's written in like an interview style, if I had read it like physically, I would have DNF'd it, to be honest. But having different actors on the audio and like hearing them with their voice changes and like the intonations, it really helped me get into the story. And so that's how I gave it 5 stars. Again, I don't know that it'd be 5 stars if I had a physical copy. Next, I read a YA book. It was called Imposter Syndrome and Other Confessions of Alexandra Kim by Patricia Park. And this book was so good. So Alejandra Kim is, I want to say she's a junior in high school, and she is, I don't want to mess it up, but I know she's Hispanic and Asian, and she faces microaggressions constantly at her predominantly white high school. Even her best friend, who is a white girl, gives her microaggressions, and her father is no longer in the picture. He passed away. And her mom is unavailable. Her mom is grieving, but Alejandra is trying to find herself. And it was great commentary on how students of color have to navigate in high school or other situations. And it was a great coming of age story. I recommend it to any teen or adult because I'm an adult and read it. But it was so good. So 5 stars for that. Next up, I read The Love Wager by Lynn Painter. I was on kind of a Lynn Painter grind, and I think I've read all the ones that I want to read now, but this follows Haley. So in this book, Haley has a one-night stand with Jack. She's disgusted with herself. She decides to sort of like get her life together, and then she gets back on her dating app and runs into the guy that she had the one-night stand with on the dating app. They decide to connect, but totally platonic, right? Totally platonic. And they start to text each other about the different dates that they're having, but never like dating each other. And then, as you can probably imagine, things start to develop, but it develops out of the idea of this love wager, right? So they place a bet on who will find love first through these apps. Fill in the blanks. It's a romance. Okay, next up, I read The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. Now, this is one that everybody talked about, and I was interested in it, but I hadn't gotten it, but it was on Kindle Unlimited, so then I definitely had to get it. But this is a really creepy book about a nanny who goes to work at a house that is very odd. The mom is twisted. It's hard to say with thrillers so much because I don't want to spoil anything for you. I will say this. It is about a nanny who works in a home, and it doesn't go as it's supposed to go. The mom, main character, is out of her mind, and I highly suggest it. So if you want to read something weird and a little bit scary, definitely do that. Okay, the next book I read that was a 5-star was Rock Bottom Girl by Lucy Score. I picked this up randomly on Kindle Unlimited and really liked it. This book follows Marley, who's moving back to her hometown after 20 years, kind of like hitting rock bottom. And she is brought into a school to teach, I want to say physical education. And she meets up with, she's coaching the soccer team, sorry. She meets up with one of her high school friends who's now a teacher at the school, and they start getting reacquainted. And so obviously it's a romance, so part of the story that was really good was just her evolution, coming back to her hometown, working with the soccer team, working with the soccer parents and the entitled kids. And then Jake was a really great guy. Okay, next I read Throttled by Lauren Asher. I read this book with my sister as a buddy read. Ended up giving it 5 stars, but that was the only 5-star I gave in the books that I read in that series. And I really don't know why I gave it 5 stars, but I don't really go back and change my stars. But it follows Maya and Noah. Maya is on tour with her older brother doing NASCAR racing, and she falls for Noah. It's forbidden love, and they sneak around, and Noah's got some other issues going on and that he has to work through it in order to get Noah to really love him. All right, the next book that I gave 5 stars was Marianne and the Playground Fight by Ann and Martin. Again, this is another Babysitters Club book. And I liked this one because it's like this challenge around who is going to have counseling jobs for the summer. And I kind of always like when there's conflict within the Babysitters Club. I don't know what that says about me, but I like to see how they navigate it and how it's written. And people's true colors really show. Like the writers, and I know Ann and Martin didn't write all of the books, but the writers sometimes go off, and it's great. Next, I read Happy Place by Emily Henry. This book is like a fever dream. I gave it 5 stars. I don't know why, so let me just read you a brief of the synopsis. Harriet and Wynn have been the perfect couple since they met in college. They go together like salt and pepper, honey and tea, lobster and rolls. Except now, for reasons they're still not discussing, they don't. They broke up 6 months ago and still haven't told their best friends. And then they go to like their summer cabin sort of retreat thing that they always do, and it's awkward because they're not actually together, but the friends don't know it. I enjoyed it, and I don't remember much about it. The next book that I gave 5 stars was The Dinner List by Rebecca Serle. Again, another timeline story, but this story follows a girl who is given that question by her friend in college, like, if you could have dinner with any 5 people in your life that are significant in your life, living or dead, who would you have dinner with? And she names the people, and then all of a sudden she's like at dinner with them. And like each person plays a role either in her life, or if they're a celebrity, they've played a role in her cognitive thinking. And so it's definitely a reflection, retrospective type of book as she's getting over her ex. And we kind of go back and forth between the dinner and then how her and her ex met, their relationship, and subsequently how they broke up. The next book that I gave 5 stars was For Middle Grade May. It was New from Here by Kelly Yang. I really love this book. This book follows a family who was living in Hong Kong when the pandemic struck. Hong Kong had not been affected yet. They decided to go to the United States before Hong Kong could get any pandemic issues going on. And so they get there and they go to California, and they've lived in California before, so they were just in Hong Kong for a short time. And they face tons of racism because they are Asian. And I thought this was also great commentary on the times as we were thinking about during pandemic, how Asian Americans were discriminated against and just Asians in general. And so I thought I would not like this book because it was COVID related and we're all so close to it. Like I lived it, I don't need to read about it, but it's actually really good from the kid perspective. The next book I read that was a 5 stars, A True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. This book, again, another fever dream. I got it from Book of the Month Club and I was so excited to get it, but it basically follows the sequel after Love Experiment. So we have that DNA company that takes DNA and matches people up. And so they decide to do they take that premise of that DNA test that's been made, and they create like a dating show like The Bachelor to see if Fizzy, who's like a writer and kind of like B-level famous, will actually fall for the person with the best DNA match. So it was really cute, really well written. The twist is, I can't tell you, but it's really, really good. So I suggest that. Then I read Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. I gave this 5 stars. I know this one's conflicting. Some people don't like it, but I really liked it. I thought it was cute. It follows Fern and I want to say Will. They met a while ago and had a great day hanging out. Nothing physical happened. They decided to meet up in the same location a year later, and Will never showed up. Now, Fern is running her mom's sort of cabin. Her mom's just passed away, and Will shows up, and they try to figure out what went wrong, what happened. The only criticism I have, but this didn't take away the 5 stars for me, was that Will and Fern spent like 12 hours together, and it's the love of her life. That part didn't connect for me. I didn't understand why this was so serious. Okay, the next book that I rated 5 stars was Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I listened to this on my way to a work trip and really enjoyed it. And so it follows Dr. Brianna Ortiz and Jacob, who are both doctors at a hospital, and Dr. Ortiz is upset and nervous that Jacob was brought in to sort of take her job as she tries to get a promotion. There's kind of like a little boys club happening there. This involves some fake dating, and it's really cute. The third act breakup didn't bother me. Next, I read Yellowface-R-F Kuang. This was the first R.F. Kuang book that I read, and I really, really loved it. This book follows June and Athena. They've been longtime writing friends and rivals, I guess sort of frenemies in the writing world. And Athena has an unfortunate accident, and June capitalizes on that and begins taking Athena's work and pushing it off as her own. I thought this was a great story. It was well written, it was fast paced, and it was commentary again on societal issues. Next, I read Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I was not expecting to read this, but I picked it up and really, really loved it. It is a heavier book. It took a little time to get through, but it basically follows two lifelong friends who met in a hospital and continue their relationship through the love of video games, eventually branch that out into creating a video game and a business. Throughout the time, they have ups and downs like any other friendship. What I will warn in this, because nobody ever says this, is that it does get dark. Like, there are some very dark parts, there's some heavy parts, there are some trigger warnings in it, some violence in it. That's not my cup of tea, and so I didn't know that going in, and so when it got violent, I was like, ooh, like it made me feel uncomfortable. But it's still a really, really great book. It did make you feel things, and I highly recommend. I did try to find other books by Gabrielle Zevin, but I didn't really see anything else that interested me. Next, I read It's Not Summer Without You by Jenny Han. That's my second time reading it, and I was reading it in preparation for watching Summer I Turned Pretty Season 2. Really loved the book still. Not much to say about it. If you are in the world, you know the world, but really well written. And Team Jeremiah. All right, next up, I read Marianne's Makeover. And I really liked this story by Ann and Martin because it kind of goes into the intricacies of girl friendship with Marianne's Makeover. And I was really interested and fascinated in the dichotomy of like these girls being her friend, but like not liking her improving herself. And so that was really interesting to me. And then I have another couple. I won't really go into them, but the first two books, The Babysitter's Club, Kristy's Great Idea, Claudia, The Phantom Phone Call, I also gave those 5 stars. Again, I'm rereading these from the beginning, and so I was really interested and captivated by reinitiating that love of the characters. And then finally, I read Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. I saw this on Olivia Reads a Latte, on her reading vlog, and I was like, this sounds really good. So it follows Mallory, who is in recovery. She lives like in a halfway house, and she has her sponsor provides her information about a nanny job, and the nanny position gets weird when the child that Mallory is sitting for draws pictures of his imaginary friend, and they're absolutely horrifying. I will link my vlog, my reading vlog where I'm reading this, because I show you pictures from the book and it's intense. So good, so captivating, so weird. So I highly recommend that. Okay, that was a lot of 5-star reads this year, but all worth it. I hope there's some that you will read and pick up. I will list these down below so that you have access to them. Sometimes my computer goes funny when I try to have too many pictures in pictures, so I'm not going to run it down. But I will list all of the books that I mentioned so that you can check them out as well. I'd love to hear what you've given 5 stars to, and I'd love to hear if you've read any of the books on my list. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.